Good evening, everyone. I'm Bill Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, and I'm pleased to welcome you here tonight to the September 27th, 2017 meeting of the Brighton Town Board. As always, we appreciate your participation, whether you're here in the room with us, whether you're watching us on cable channel 12, or streaming us on our YouTube channel, which you can access from the town's webpage, www.townofbrighton.org. I would note that our agenda and all supporting material for tonight's meeting is on the table at the back of the room. If you're watching us remotely, you can get all of that same information, and that's all the same information we have here with us on our laptops here at the table on the town's webpage. We think it's important that you be able to participate and follow along fully in our meeting. And speaking of participating, we will be going to the open forum portion of the meeting in just a moment, where anyone in the room is welcome to question or comment on any matter, whether or not it's before the board, but also people who are watching us distance at home or wherever else you're watching can call in. But first I want to start this evening, as we always do, with a pledge to the flag, the symbol of our freedoms as Americans, and those freedoms include the right of free speech, guaranteed by the First Amendment. It is the symbol of our great nation. I'm going to ask Councilmember Werner to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Tonight, before the open forum, we will be presenting the tentative 2018 operating budget for the town of Brighton. As we do every year, we make this presentation before we hold public hearings. We will be holding our annual public hearings, our 2 public hearings on the town budget at our 2 meetings in October. I think it is very important again to note that we are presenting this budget to the community now, holding these budget hearings before November. I think everyone in the community has the right to know what their local government is proposing financially, the condition of your local government prior to November every year. So I do want to first acknowledge our budget director, Roger Sammons, who will be making a more detailed presentation on the budget in a moment, and Suzanne Zaso, our finance director. Together, they have put together, in collaboration with myself, this 2012 tentative operating budget. And tonight we are presenting that budget to the Brighton community. The financial condition of Brighton is strong, and that financial strength will be preserved and, I believe, strengthened with this budget. For 2018, we are proposing a tentative budget that in many respects is essentially level with 2017, featuring a small decrease in the tax levy for the town's operating funds. Now, your own tax rate as a property owner may increase more or may be lower, depending largely on special districts such as sewer, water, fire, sidewalk, snow plowing, and refuse districts that may apply to your property, as well as any changes to the assessed valuation of your property. This tentative budget is in compliance with the New York State tax cap for 2018. Once again, I'm pleased that this tentative budget balances fiscal control with high-quality service and continued extraordinary financial strength here in Brighton. As I mentioned a moment ago, after I make this presentation of the budget message, our budget officer will present a more detailed summary of the tentative budget. The development of the budget begins in the spring of each year, when each department head prepares a 3-year capital improvement plan to enable us to plan ahead for important town projects and significant capital expenditures. The New York State Comptroller recommends that municipalities prepare a capital improvement plan to encourage local governments to plan ahead on a longer-term basis for spending for major infrastructure efforts, equipments and vehicles, and the town of Brighton does so each year, looking out over a 3-year period to plan for governmental needs in advance. The 3-year capital improvement plan also allows us to develop plans for funding these significant expenditures. This year, the capital improvement plan was approved by the town board on August 9th, and it includes continued maintenance and improvements to our basic infrastructure, our streets, our sidewalks, and our sewers, purchases of trucks and heavy equipment, replacing outdated and often inefficient items, and it prepares for important future projects, such as the winter Brighton Farmers Market facility and a new Brighton Community Center. But even during the review and approval process for the capital improvement plan, which I'll sometimes call the CIP, we had already begun the preparation of this tentative budget presented tonight. The town board held 2 budget workshop meetings, open meetings, at which each department presented its budget request to the town board. The Finance and Administrative Services Committee will also review this tentative budget in an open meeting. Although there has been significant public review and input to this budget before its formal submission, it's important to stress that tonight's submission of the tentative budget does not end the public review process. In fact, quite the opposite is true. The town board will again, as I mentioned a moment ago, hold 2 public hearings to take public comment on the 2018 tentative budget at town board meetings that will be held on October 11th and October 25th at 7 p.m. here in Brighton Town Hall. Copies of the tentative operating budget are available for review in the town clerk's office, the Brighton Memorial Library, and if it's not there already, tomorrow it will be available on the Town of Brighton website, again, www.townofbrighton.org. Those 2 budget hearings will be broadcast live and rebroadcast on our cable access channel and streamed on the town's YouTube feed. Comments to the tentative budget can be submitted in person at either of the 2 public hearings, but they can also be submitted by email to the town clerk at daniel.amon@townofbrighton.org or by mail to the clerk, Daniel Amon, 2300 Elmwood Avenue, Rochester, New York, 14618. Those comments that are submitted in writing prior to the end of the public hearing on October 25th will be included in the public record of the hearings. Because this budget is intended to reflect the needs and the priorities of the Brighton community, we gratefully acknowledge the efforts of the volunteer members of the Budget Review Task Force and the Sustainability Oversight Committee, both of which are made up of Brighton volunteers who have expertise and take the time to meet with town staff and review budget and financial matters with an eye towards financial stability and sustainability. Independent ratings continue to confirm the fiscal strength of the town of Brighton. Just this week, we received the State Comptroller's Fiscal Stress Monitoring System score for the town of Brighton. This is a scoring system under which the State Comptroller evaluates the financial strength of every municipality in the state of New York. Our latest score continues to rate the town of Brighton highly, both on fiscal score component, which focuses on the internal financial strength of the town, and the environmental score component, which considers outside factors affecting the town's financial strength. Once again, Moody's, the highly regarded national debt rating agency, has rated Brighton's debt at a very high quality AA2 level, one of the highest ratings of any municipality in New York earlier this year. Our independent auditor also audits the town's financial statements each year, and as part of that audit, makes a finding that they have been prepared in accordance with Government Accounting Standards Board requirements. But one of the most significant challenges that we face in preparing a budget is continued slow growth or even decline in our tax base here in Brighton. Although the tax levy of the town's operating funds will fall slightly in 2018, the tax rate is projected to rise by a very modest 12/100ths of 1% because of a 13/100ths of 1% decline in the overall assessed valuation of real property here in Brighton. While many properties, including residential properties, are clearly rising in value in Brighton, property owners can and do have the right to challenge their assessments, and in many cases those challenges do lead to reductions in assessment, whether residential or commercial properties. We are addressing this issue of a declining or stable tax rate, a tax base, in several ways. While new development and redevelopment of existing properties has a positive impact on our tax base, so long as those projects are completed in a manner that does not unduly impair our residential neighborhoods. Much of the recent development in Brighton and throughout the Rochester area has been in the area of tax-exempt educational and medical facilities or tax-advantaged projects with commuta exemptions, which stunt the positive impact of that development for the town. More on that in a minute. Fairness in tax assessment is very important, and I believe that Brighton takes a very professional approach to property tax challenges, seeking to resolve matters wherever possible, but recognizing that excessively low valuation claims simply pass the tax burden on to other taxpayers. The town reviews its valuation ratios and conducts revaluation when there is empirical proof that valuations have changed significantly. For that reason, the town is now conducting a town-wide assessment update in 2017, continuing on into 2018, including all residential and non-residential properties, to ensure that the tax levy is allocated fairly among all properties. Much of the cost of this revaluation will come from town reserves allocated for this purpose, and I would also note that our assessor, Elaine Ainsworth, really was very creative in identifying ways to minimize the cost of that revaluation effort while still maintaining the highest quality professional services. Now, I want to note a common misconception, which is that will a revaluation make your taxes go up? Actually, not at all. That is not what a revaluation is. In fact, although many, if not most, residential properties will likely show an increase in their assessed valuation as a result of this revaluation, the tax rate applied to that increased valuation will likely fall. The result being some properties will see an increase in taxes, some properties will likely see a decrease in taxes. Now, as noted a moment ago, much of the new development in Brighton is coming from the tax-exempt sector. Brighton has taken the lead in making sure that these tax-exempt organizations that provide extremely valuable services to the community and create many new jobs, but also impact the need for government services, pay their fair share towards the town's ability to provide those services. We do this by using incentive zoning to generate long-term funding support for not-for-profits who are building in Brighton. Just yesterday, I addressed the grand opening of the new greenhouse project at Jewish Senior Life on Winton Road, a project that is clearly enhancing the quality of life in Brighton by providing new and innovative living opportunities for individuals needing skilled nursing care. Jewish Senior Life will make long-term payments to the town in lieu of taxes on that new facility. The town plans to initially use these revenues to ensure that our own senior programs have a home that we can all be proud of. Incentive zoning has played a major role in allowing Brighton to expand its park system, including most recently the new Brickyard Trail, and these significant incentive zoning amenity payments from otherwise tax-exempt businesses, such as Jewish Senior Life and the University of Rochester, both important partners in Brighton's future, are just one way that Brighton is using incentive zoning for the benefit of Brighton taxpayers. Property tax receipts are the largest source of town revenues, but they're not the only source. The town also receives revenues from mortgage and sales taxes, fees for programs and services, and cable TV franchise fees, among others. Sales tax revenues are based on retail sales throughout Monroe County. And while sales tax revenues have continued to exceed expectations in 2017, we're taking a conservative estimate of sales tax growth for 2018, mindful that the Rochester area economy continues to grow slowly, and also recognizing the changes taking place in the retail sector, not just here in Brighton and in the Rochester area, but throughout the country, with the rise of Amazon and other internet retail sales. Mortgage tax revenues are the most volatile source of town funding, tied both to the economic and home building cycles, as well as interest rate cycles that dramatically affect both home sales and mortgage refinancings. Again, mortgage tax receipts have been relatively strong in recent years, and again, continue to exceed projections so far in 2017. But we will continue to budget this volatile but significant component of our overall revenues at a conservative level, projecting another small rise in 2018. As always, our town financial staff, Suzanne and Roger, will monitor these sources of income throughout the year to ensure that we will not face unexpected shortfalls before year end. Of course, the reason that building revenue sources is so important to maintaining the financial strength of Brighton is that expenses continue to rise, in many cases at a rate above the rate of inflation. Personnel costs are the largest expense of the town of Brighton and for most local governments. Wages and salaries have continued to grow, and employee and retiree health insurance premiums, over which the town has limited control, will rise even faster. And in fact, today I attended a meeting of the Board of Directors of the Finger Lakes Municipal Health Insurance Trust, FLMHIT, a municipal insurance consortium of communities not only in Monroe County but throughout the area. That organization has been a way of ensuring that the town has available insurance at a rate that's more competitive than the marketplace. But I would note, and I'm going to talk about that again in a moment, the town of Brighton has very little control over the rates set by insurance carriers for employee health premiums. An item that's been in the news a lot lately is shared services, and the town of Brighton continues to focus on ways we can cut costs by sharing services with other governmental bodies. As I mentioned, the Board of Directors of the Finger Lakes Municipal Health Insurance Trust met today to approve rates for health insurance in 2018. By partnering with those other municipalities that are members of FLMHIT, we ensure not only the availability of insurance, but also that those insurance policies are available at a cost significantly less than what it would cost to obtain similar coverage in the open market. Whether it's plowing streets, providing fire service, or addressing the continued problem of vacant properties, the town of Brighton has partnered with other local governments to provide important services effectively and economically for decades, and we will continue to search for new ways to collaborate with our partners in government in the future. Preparing the town tentative budget each year is an opportunity to review operations, identify areas for improvement, and again, find areas for collaboration. It's a time to explore how we can enhance our tax base through smart growth policies, incentive zoning, and redevelopment, so we can control your town taxes. We may not always agree on how to achieve these goals, but I can promise that we will always listen to your input, whether at our 2 budget hearings in October or at hearings on projects that may help in our ongoing efforts to provide revenue to fund essential services while maintaining the equally important Brighton quality of life. That input is essential to what is ultimately a balancing between the need to be fiscally prudent and the need to offer the services that make Brighton a special community. We look forward to your input during those 2 budget hearings in October, and we appreciate the efforts of every community volunteer and town staff member, and of course some of them are here tonight, who assisted in the preparation of this budget. Thank you. And again, we will be putting that budget online. We will also be putting the presentation that you're about to see from our budget director, Roger Sammons, going into a little more depth on the budget. So I'm going to suggest those of us up here retire to the seats, and I'll turn the floor over to Budget Director Roger Sammons. Roger?
Thank you, Supervisor Maley. What we've got here is a quick overview of the 2018 budget. And we'll begin by showing you some of the services that your budget money pays for. First category is police department and court. We have a New York State accredited police agency with a staff of 40 professional and dedicated sworn police officers. We have a 24-hour-a-day operation. In 2016, there were nearly 46,000 calls for service, up 6% from 2015. The forecast for 2017 is 48,000, up another 5%. There were 580 criminal arrests made in 2016. The forecast for this year is 600, which is up another 3%. As part of the Community Engagement Initiative, there were a total of 90 community presentations made by the police department. And our courts will complete 11,800 cases in 2017. Our highway department and sewer department look after our infrastructure. We maintain roads, storm sewers, concrete gutters, curbing, and approximately 1,700 road signs. Our department repaves and surface treats roadways throughout the town on a rotating schedule. We have snow and ice control during the winter of 318 lane miles of roads. From April to October, we're picking up curbside brush and leaf materials and taking them and processing them at the town landfill. And our tree people are constantly working on trees to the tune of 200 trees trimmed during the year, 45 removed, and another 35 planted. Our library provides a wide array of information. It also provides community resources, including classes and groups for various interests, and a lot of volunteer work going on there, and special room for children, and the Alice Wilson Low Vision Technology Room. In 2016, we had nearly 600,000 materials checked out. And in 2017, we're forecasting 110,000 PC hours of internet activity by our patrons. Parks and Recreation, we have 7 parks and recreation areas of over 528 acres. We have 7 playgrounds, 2 lodges, athletic fields, basketball courts, picnic facilities, walking trails. Our recreation department offers activities and classes year-round for all age groups, from children up through seniors, with 660 sessions offered in 2017. And our recreation department oversees community garden, farmers market, and Veterans Memorial is handled by the Parks Department. Our general services include fire marshal, who looks after the fire and building codes, public works, reviews construction projects. Public Works also plans town infrastructure and development projects such as the Highland Canal Trail. Our cable broadcasting department broadcasts these meetings on a semi-weekly basis, semi-monthly, that is. Town clerk provides marriage licenses, passports, and conducts elections. Historian collects, organizes, and preserves town records. Our assessor maintains the property valuation records. Here's a look at where our budget dollars come from. As you can see, the biggest chunk is the real property tax. 62% of our money, or $15 million, comes from the real property tax. Next largest is sales tax, 15% of our incoming money, or $3.8 million, which is our forecast for next year in sales tax. Departmental incomes, fees, sales, and permits, another $2 million. Appropriated fund balance, meaning we're drawing down some fund balance, is $1 million going into 2018 budget. Mortgage tax is almost $1 million in our forecast for next year. Intergovernmental charges, about $500,000. We have an all other group, which is also a little over $500,000. We do get some New York State aid. The biggest chunk of that is highway money that comes in every year of about $200,000 plus. Appropriated reserve funds, once again drawing down some reserves, $85,000, and then a smaller category of federal aid and interest income. On the flip side, here's where our dollars are spent by department. The largest spending category is the police department at roughly 33%, or $8 million of the town budget. Next largest is the highway operations, $6 million, almost $7 million. Public Works, which includes parks, another $3 million. The library is over $2 million. And then we get into general government support, which is most of the departments in the town hall, almost $2 million. The recreation department, a little over $1 million. Town justices and the courts, about $500,000. The town clerk's office, about $500,000. And finally, the supervisor and town board. So that's where our money's going by department. Roughly $25 million in the town budget for this year, upcoming. Here's a breakdown of 2018 and some of the 2017 numbers for comparison purposes. You've got the funds, the three primary funds in the town budget are listed down the left side: general fund, highway fund, library fund. We've got authorized appropriations, which is your forecasted expenditures. Your revenues are going across the top by department or by fund. Appropriated fund balance that we're drawing down. And the math basically leaves us with the amount to be raised in taxes. If you look at the fourth line of going across total all town funds 2018, you can see we're going to be spending $25 million, revenues coming in at $9 million. The biggest chunk of that is the sales tax, which is over $3 million of that. Appropriated fund balance, and then finally the amount to be raised in property taxes is a little under $15 million. The next row going across shows that the 2017 numbers are very similar. We're spending a little bit more, we're raising more. The biggest increase in revenue being the sales tax is continuing to go up. So we're getting more money out of our sales taxes. Appropriated fund balance is the same as 2017, and the amount to be raised in taxes actually came out to be a little bit less for 2018. And at the bottom going across, you can see the numbers that Supervisor Maley referred to, where the assessed value has actually come down a little bit for 2018, $3 million decrease out of a $2.6 billion tax base for a small negative change in our tax base, which drives a slight increase in the tax rate for 2018. In addition to the town budget, we have special districts, which are our refuse districts, our street lighting districts, our sidewalk districts, and sewer district. And going across on the second row, you can see the special district numbers. $5 million in spending, having to raise almost $5 million in taxes. When you combine the two, the town operating budget and the special districts, where we have a $30 million total. And going across, you'll see the amount to be raised in taxes for both is about $19 million. And comparing that to the next row, 2017, it's about the same, just a touch up because of the increase in the special districts. And that increase is reflected down below, $261,000 tax levy increase, which includes the special district increases, and percentage basis, 1.36. And that does fall within the state tax cap numbers, so we won't be going over the state tax cap for 2018. On the capital side, this is some of the highlights that we're looking at spending money on capital in 2018. Sewer district, on an annual basis, we do sewer relining. And going across sewer district, this is some of the equipment that we're planning on buying in 2018. Small dump truck, trading in some Bobcats, buying some camera equipment, which is used to visualize the sewer pipes. And most of that money we're planning on borrowing. The sidewalk district maintains district sidewalks for the town. We do replace broken and damaged sidewalks every year, and we measure that in a square foot replacement. And we're going to spend about $151,000 in 2018 on sidewalks. The ambulance district, every year we contribute money toward purchase of a new ambulance, and they periodically will purchase a new ambulance. So the $75,000 set aside next year will go in a fund to be allocated to a new ambulance when the time comes to purchase a new one. They did purchase a new one this year in 2017. Other capital items going across. On an annual basis, we spend money on information system, primarily replacing equipment that's outdated and needs replacing. $25,000 is set aside for next year. The police department plans to replace 4 vehicles, 3 police cruisers, and an administrative car next year. And on an ongoing basis, they have body camera data storage requirements that are also counted in our capital spending. The next category, recreation, parks, and facilities, some of the new things that are going on. Farmers Market barn renovation for the winter farmers market, a new van for the recreation department, town hall, HVAC engineering. We're looking at an ongoing project to replace town hall HVAC as needed, and this is the engineering costs associated. Park lodge repair, a large chunk of this $500,000 in spending is going to be provided by grant money that will be associated with the farmers market. And the $40,000 borrowing will go towards the new van for the rec department that will actually save some money for the rec department over contracted costs this year. Next, going across our assessment update, year 2 of 2, we're going to spend another $91,000 on that, revaluing the town properties. And finally, the last capital group, vehicles for the Highway and Public Works Department, a couple of large trucks, 2 small trucks and 2 tractors for next year, almost $600,000. We will borrow all of that money. The road program, every year, once again, doing infrastructure and sidewalk repairs, $1.2 million. We are expecting $700,000 in grants for doing some of that work. couple of the smaller items, we have a Highway Cobra Head light project under consideration for next year that will put high-efficiency LED lights to replace more expensive to use lights that we have in place this year. Pedestrian and bike implementation, new project for providing facility for bike usage primarily. And the Highland Canal Trail underway, 900 in the planning process, $900,000 total, 865 of that grant funded primarily for the Highland Canal Trail. And finally, forestry management. On an ongoing basis and an annual basis, we do tree trimming, removing, and planting for a cost of $62,500. And that's it for the plan for next year. Thank you very much.
Again, thank you, Roger, for that presentation. Thank you both, Roger and Suzanne, for all the work you have done in putting together our 2018 budget in this budget book. And as I said earlier, we do welcome your input, and we look forward to holding those budget hearings at our 2 town board meetings in October. With that, we will proceed to the open forum portion of the meeting. As always, the portion of the meeting where you can make presentation, ask questions, whether it's concerning a matter on tonight's agenda or not. And as I noted, if you're not here, you can still participate in the open forum by calling 303-3060. That's 303-3060. Someone will take your call and relay your question or comment. If you are deaf or hearing impaired, you can call our TDD line at 784-5205. Again, our TDD line to participate in the open forum, 784-5205. We look forward to hearing from you with your questions and your comments. And here you are. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you so much for giving the community this opportunity to address you. I came this evening because I had a question about sidewalks.
If I could ask you again, just
Sure.
please state your name and
Right.
if you would, your address for the record.
My
Thank
name
you.
is Susan Hughes Smith. I live at 453 Edgewood Avenue. We've been there 9 years, and all during those 9 years, there has not been a sidewalk that goes all the way from Monroe Avenue to French Road School continuously on either side of Edgewood Avenue. And I've watched many, many, many children, not my own actually, but many other people's children, who have to cross back and forth across Edgewood in order to get home from school or to go to school. There are many close calls, and there desperately needs to be some crosswalks. I understand that Mr. Keefe has been working on that, and I really appreciate it. I'm glad to hear that a sidewalk will be coming and a crosswalk will be coming at the intersection of Dartford and Edgewood. I was so excited to see how creative you are, Supervisor, with finding inventive ways to get revenues for the town. And so I'm hopeful that you might find a way to speed up the implementation of that crosswalk. It certainly would be a shame to have a tragedy, because we certainly couldn't just find how to shift a little money in order to paint some lines and put in some handicapped accessible sidewalk. I do feel that you really need an additional crosswalk on the other side of the overpass of 590, where Warren intersects with Edgewood, because there's kids in the Warren neighborhood who cannot get to French Road School without crossing Edgewood there. honest. There's nowhere for them to cross. So would appreciate if that could be addressed as quickly as possible. Should we go on?
Tim, can you give an update on the Dartford crosswalk? And I appreciate, sometimes crosswalks look like such an easy thing, painting some lines on the pavement. And as you correctly point out, it also involves making sure that there is handicap accessibility as well as sidewalk. There has to be a sidewalk and a connection in place at both ends of the crosswalk. So Tim, any update on where that?
Certainly, Supervisor.
At a lot, your highway department people have been working very, very hard on Monroe Avenue. They have been repainting some of our existing crosswalks. And as long as I'm mentioning that, and I'm going to go to Mark in a little bit, but I was walking down Elmwood Avenue yesterday while the highway crews were out painting crosswalks. And they had the street narrowed down to one lane at these intersections as they were painting. And I watched drivers driving significantly above the speed limit, despite the fact that the road was narrowed down, despite the fact that there were workers wearing orange vests in the right-of-way. And I've got to ask, please, and I know I'd like to think that those people that are speeding aren't Brighton residents, but the chief will tell you that most of the tickets we write in neighborhoods are written to residents of those neighborhoods. So some of you that are out there speeding on Elmwood Avenue, are probably Brighton residents. But especially when you see our highway crews out there working, I was really chagrined, frankly, to see the disregard for those workers. So just a quick rant. Tim.
Well, thank you, Supervisor. I'd be happy to update, and it's really not a rant. It's really calling attention to something we desperately need, and that's people to pay attention and be courteous while they're driving. And it works both ways with pedestrians as well, because as we all know, that in a car-ped accident, no matter who's in the right, we know who's going to lose in that accident. And so we all have to be careful. We all have to consciously acknowledge each other, and we have to be courteous. And that's going to take some time. I've seen the aggressive driving. I've seen the aggressive pedestrians at times too, that they dare to step off, so that they can, because they have the right. Not necessarily the best way to do that, but there's safety programs out there that you see the signs when you go through some construction zones. Let them work, let them live, and some other things. That's my mom or dad out there working, and it's very unfortunate because, particularly on Elmwood, it's basically a point A to point B route, and it's people coming through town, and you try to say, look, it's a residential street for the most part, even though it's 4 lanes, heavily traveled, but how would you like people driving through your neighborhood like that? So try to, reflect on that. So the point's well taken, Bill, because it is a problem. I would hate to think that one of our employees, was involved in some type of altercation because of, somebody not paying attention, or that they just weren't courteous enough to slow down for a brief period of time going through a work zone.
But when those folks are working, what can we expect at Dartford?
Dartford, and Susan and I have been in contact over the past week or so on this. So, so I've explained to her that there's a number of things. As you said, our crews are working very hard this year. We have had to prioritize on some things. When this process started late last year, it was well beyond where we were with any budgeting for 2017. And I've told Susan, it's more than just putting stripes on the road. Everybody's got to be all in on this, and we had to get the county buy-in. The county would go out and they would make an assessment. They would basically send out and they would, traffic counts, line of sight, distance, and other things. They concurred with our request. And I think it's a good thing, because that's where the sidewalk jumps across from the east side of Edgewood over to the west side on the bridge, and then we have a sidewalk on the west side going all the way down to French Road. So from that perspective, We got the okay from the county, then we had to go design it. So we've done the design, we've gotten essentially everything signed off by the county, so we can move forward. But again, where we are in the season at this point, it's late, we have to extend the sidewalk, then we have to, put ramps in. So we have at least 2 new ramps to put in that are ADA compliant. We may have to make the existing ramp at Dartford compliant as well. Because once you put that in, you want to make sure everything is, is copacetic from that perspective. So it really is not only a timing, but a financing from the standpoint of where we stand with our budget and everything else. So I'm thinking 2018 is realistic. I don't see us being able to do this. And as you know, because the last few weeks have been the best weeks of the summer, Tim Springer and his crew have been out doing all the sidewalk markings that they couldn't get to this summer because it was a poor summer. We lost a lot of time in a lot of ways because, the weather being wet and cool. So, I know that's not what you want to hear, but we do have the same sentiment that, this is a needed improvement, for pedestrians. Particularly, we know that there's kids going to school, because that's what initiated, as I said, one of the other parents in the neighborhood. There was a car altercation with their son on a bike. Fortunately, everything, there was no injuries or anything, but, it accentuates, why we need to do these things, Susan. So you're right. And relative to perhaps looking at Warren or further down the road, and as I was explaining, to budget, and it would not be a cheap project to put sidewalks along the east side of Edgewood, but we would look for funding. And, there's some things relative to Warren that we're going to relook at over the winter time. And it may be a more opportune time to go back to the county at that point when we have some other things to say. Holistically, we're looking at Warren Avenue again because of the situation that happened a few years back with the bus accident.
Right.
And the county, if we do it that way, we won't overload the county, but we may have more merit to put another one in close proximity to the one at Dartford. So.
Great. Well, I appreciate that you responded to me within a week. That was really, really great. And I'm glad to know that you're on it. And I'm just here to try to press people to find ways to make it happen faster, because these are our kids.
Yeah.
Second question, kind of related to funding, would be, have we gotten our designation as a clean energy community? That was an opportunity to apply for grant money to do other sustainability initiatives.
In the process of meeting the 4 out of 10 criteria, we're going to be setting a public hearing at our next meeting on a benchmarking local law, which will be our 3rd, and then our training. And benchmarking, I know you're familiar with it, but it really relates to energy consumption and where we're at in terms of our energy consumption, and doing, systematizing that and reporting that on an annual basis. We also have training work that would be the 4th step. So I do anticipate that probably in the realistically the first part of 2018, I would expect that we would have met those 4 tests, and we'll be in a position to apply for funding. We have, I never like to put the cart before the horse, but we have talked about what that funding would be used for, and it would certainly be used for sustainability projects, perhaps the LED conversion for the existing Cobra Head lighting fixtures on our main arterial streets, to the extent that those are owned by the town, which would, of course, further reduce our energy consumption.
Great, that's wonderful to know. And actually, I had one other question about Edgewood. I know it's a county road, and that complicates things. And so who's in charge of the speed limit on that road?
Let me,
Would there be an opportunity to reduce the speed limit during the hours which the kids are coming and going from school to, say, 20? Because no one respects the 30-mile-an-hour limit as it is. So I'd love to see you and your folks over there during those school hours, so maybe we could get people to actually drive the speed limit. But it'd be great if we could drop it to 20.
I was going to wait until the Public Safety Committee meeting, but I think we all know how important traffic safety and traffic enforcement is. The short answer is about the only jurisdiction we have on county highways is the ability of our police department to write tickets. We do not have any ability to change speed limits, put up signage, or anything else without the consent of the relevant, whether it's the county DOT or on a state highway, of which we have several, the state DOT. There's been, social media discussion, for example, about red light cameras, and whatever you think about red light cameras as one way to enforce traffic safety. Towns in New York are not permitted to use red light cameras, and of course, the intersections that I think most of us agree are most problematic are intersections with our major either county or state arterial highways, and we would have to have their approval even if red light cameras were allowed in Brighton. But I do want to, so the short answer to your question is we do not have the ability to reduce the speed limit on any county highway. Even on town highways, although we do have that ability, we do not have the power to legally reduce the speed limit below 25. But I do want to ask Mark Henderson to update the community on traffic safety and specifically traffic enforcement in the 12 corners around our schools and other traffic safety issues. Mark?
Thank you, Supervisor. I share the same concern. We have included Edgewood Avenue on our area of special attention. I can share with you that as we do every year, we try to focus on the school zones and the pedestrian traffic increases with the young children going to school. And what we've done is our efforts have been focused in and around the schools. And to date, they've been very active actually enforcing the law by issuing tickets, and we have written 40. Well, I heard this morning they were very active, so we've crested 40 tickets within the last 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks since the start of school. So that's phase one. We're announcing a pedestrian safety initiative that will focus on drawing the attention of the drivers to the pedestrians in the area. I had ordered a quantity of signs similar to my colleague Chief Tantillo in Irondequoit that basically says stay alert, school's open. I had hoped for an early September delivery date. Don't have them as of yet. When they do come in, what we hope to do is to get some media attention, basically drawn focus. Winton, in the summer months became problematic. We had to do some calming efforts on Winton. We've done some calming efforts down on French Road. And then in particular, the 12 Corners area, I've heard from a number of parents concerns. I heard that this was a topic of conversation at the PTSA at the middle school. I've offered to attend meetings. We've adjusted some of our logistics with our crossing guards. And again, one of the slides that was shown as a budget presentation was a new motorcycle. That was with the weather. We've had it out this past week, and that's been very useful. The motorcycle stages at the 12 corners and calls out to the vehicles that are off, violators. So we're trying to get that from an enforcement standpoint. The signs would have been very good from an education standpoint. I'll do my media outreach. I'll add, I just looked at the list of special attentions for traffic for the next 2 weeks. I'll add Edgewood Avenue to that. I share your concern.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it. Obviously, further up away from the crossing guard is the issue where the kids.
So around the expressway, what they would do both. They'd actually look at north and south, and
that'd be great. Appreciate that.
we'll look at also some data. We've been monitoring the data on Warren Avenue, and that's trending a little bit higher than we'd like. I'll also include Edgewood Avenue on that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. My third question was about these committee reports. I was excited to see that they're on the agenda for this evening, and I'm wondering, I see the Sustainability Oversight committee annual report is available on the town website. Do they ever make a verbal report to the committee, and do all these committees report on like a regular basis? Or is there a schedule?
We have a lot of committees and boards. Some boards, like the planning board and the zoning board, are statutory boards. Those boards are authorized by the town law of the state of New York. In fact, the planning board is meeting downstairs as we speak, and all of those boards are staffed by not only town staff, but the decision makers are community volunteers. But we also have a number of, I don't want to call them ad hoc boards, because I think could sort of suggest that they're less important than they are. We have a number of other citizen boards, and the Sustainability Oversight Committee is a good one, that are either permanent boards or in some cases, as we have, for example, with our comprehensive plan update, are project related. But the Sustainability Oversight Committee meets monthly. They really, two major reports that they do. One is the annual report that we are receiving tonight, but the other, and I alluded to this in my budget presentation, is their review of the capital budget, in particular, making recommendations as to where capital expenditures of the town can operate to enhance sustainability. And we have, they've done that, for about the time, I think they began doing it the year before I became supervisor. And each year they really go into depth. They have expertise in sustainability and energy related matters. And they're really able to, give us some ideas. Some may not be financially realistic, but others have been, for example, like LED lights, as we continue to transition to those, and we continue to work with and sometimes struggle with RG&E in terms of transitioning our neighborhood streetlight systems to LED. It has been a while since they have made a formal presentation to the town board, although certainly this annual report is in a sense a written presentation to the board.
Okay, well, I guess I would just suggest that it would be nice for the public to be able to know what's happening within those committees, that maybe they could begin making some reports semi-regularly so that we could get tuned in to what their thought processes are and their thinking. That would be much, much appreciated.
I would mention that, again, in the case of the Sustainability Oversight Committee, Councilmember Chris Warner is the town board liaison, and Chris does periodically report out on the activities of that committee.
Also, the engineer Mike Guyon is actively involved in that committee, and he's a large driving force, and he prepares many of the reports as well with the assistance of the committee as well. So there's a direct line to it in terms of reporting to the community. I understand what you're saying, but for the most part, it's done.
It's pretty obscure to the public what's happening.
And all those meetings are open to the public.
I'm sure they are, but people have lives.
And they are attended frequently by others in the community.
So I just have, in the course of my volunteer work, I'm attending a lot of board meetings these days, and being recognizing that every community seems to do things a little differently, and I really appreciated some of these communities where these committees were making just a regular presentation, just a quick update as to what was going on, the topics of discussion, and I thought that might be really useful for our community too. So just my suggestion, you all can obviously will do what,
and I would actually say I'm very proud of the breadth and the number of our committees here in Brighton, the work that they do, and the very public way in which they do operate, and of course the fact that all of these meetings And those meetings are not only open to the public, but at least these meetings are televised and
Right, which you're to be commended for, of course. And yeah, it's great that meetings are public. They're not always at a time where working people can attend them. So any way to enhance the communication would be greatly appreciated. My final question is, I'm really trying to get an understanding. From the budget, I can really see that we're very concerned with taxes and spending and finances, and obviously that's all important to everybody. But what I don't get any sense of is to the extent to which there's any understanding of the deep crisis that we are in as a species in regards to climate, and what at every level of our planning, when we're making 3-year plans, it's great. To what extent is acting on climate embedded in any of these decision-making processes? And that's what I'm trying to get at. If you could maybe address that at all.
It is absolutely a priority. Not only are we working towards as we discussed a minute ago, the 4 points to qualify for grant funding. We are a climate smart community. We have included in that budget, again, based on the recommendations of our Sustainability Oversight Committee. We always analyze the availability of alternate fuel vehicles, for example, whether biodiesel, hybrid, electric vehicles are available. We continue to focus on our trail construction, which provides transportation alternatives. The Highland Crossing Trail is the next one, and the Auburn Trail could well be close behind. There are programs that we've done for years. For example, there was reference in there to debris pickup and to leaf pickup. 12 months of the year, it was so maybe a little confusing in that presentation, but 12 months of the year, we are picking up leaves and or lawn and garden debris. That is tons of material. We all see the trucks go down our main streets and our neighborhood streets, carrying tons of material that in many communities is picked up by a trash hauler and put in a landfill. And Brighton has taken the initiative for many, many years in doing that. Our farmers market, which we support financially. By contract, those vendors are providing locally produced, locally sourced materials, reducing transportation costs, and are giving all of us the opportunity to make purchases in a way that, again, have a positive impact not only on the economy for our neighbors within that 100-mile radius, who are either in agriculture or other production areas, but reducing transportation costs. So I can tell you that from my perspective, sustainability, and I believe the town of Brighton is ahead of every other community in this region in our focus, our spending, and our planning for sustainability. Obviously, we took action years ago when, frankly, the legal status of home rule legislation on hydrofracking was not clear. We did that. I am a member of the Climate Mayors. I signed on to, in the face of a threat from Washington to withdraw from the Paris Climate Accords, I have signed on as a climate mayor. Staff participates in the Climate Mayor conference calls every month. So I would say that at every level of town government, we are engaged in sustainable activities, and we are engaged in identifying funding and implementing measures that we as a community must take to plan ahead for a future that is probably going to be very different than what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, so I do commend Brighton and you for your forward thinking in all of those programs that you've mentioned. That it's admirable that we do more than others. And I'm sure you understand that we need to be eliminating our dependency on fossil fuels at a much faster rate than there's any indication that people are doing that. We need to be achieving, net carbon zero by mid-century. And ideally, the developed countries would be zero fossil fuel use by 2030, which, now is a mere 13 years away. And I see we're replacing police vehicles. I'm sure they need to be replaced. Are they electric? That's available now. It's a possibility now. So we can sign things and we can commit to things, but what are the steps that we're actually taking to get there? Are we going to be benchmarking? Is there a pathway?
We're going to be benchmarking. We're going to adopt that law. I have spoken with the chief about alternate fuel police vehicles. There are some limited availability.
Ford just entered the market with a hybrid, and that's actually one of the ones that I'm a bid on.
Yeah. I would also, the town engineer Mike Guyon and I have had some extensive discussions about the carbon fee and dividend program, and it's my belief that program, as it currently stands and has been introduced, is severely flawed, as unfortunately a number of programs are, because they don't reflect, for example, solar tax credits. Solar tax credits don't provide an incentive for not-for-profit and government institutions to make conversions to solar. Similarly, the carbon fee and dividend program does not, although it does provide for dividend payments back to residential users, municipal users are excluded from that program. That would be a serious flaw in any such carbon fee and dividend program, and we will be communicating our feeling that while there's a lot of merit to that program, the taxpayers, because ultimately, as we know, as we've just heard, energy costs are something, as you look into the budget, that manifests themselves in a number of areas, not just in the fuel that it takes to run our vehicles, but also the carbon input to things like paving materials. To the extent that those are increased significantly by a carbon fee, if we do not receive the same dividend qualification back that residential users get, unfortunately, our residential users will have to face a significant increase in the cost of providing government service. Government is prepared to lead the way. At least this government is prepared to lead the way. But we have to do that in a way that does, and we have to advocate, frankly, for ourselves, whether through the Estate Association of Towns or individually to our own legislators at the state and federal level, to make sure that as we do make the decisions, that we have incentives as well as the residential sector, the commercial sector have, to be more sustainable, more energy efficient in our decision making. It pains me to see that those same, that higher levels of government, and we've talked about government mandates, that higher levels of government don't take into account the fact that those of us working in the trenches are ourselves able to make decisions and should ourselves be incented to make the right decisions.
Right. That's a very, very good point, which brings me to my question as to, this state government is trying to encourage and incentivize localities to take control of their energy future through a program that we discussed already, community choice aggregation. So that would be one way that we could begin to have that conversation about creating renewable energy. We have to be on a path where currently 92% of the energy needs of New York State residents is supplied from outside the state, because most of our energy has to be brought in. we could change that, and that could be an economic boon for us. If we electrify cars, if we convert homes off of natural gas and off of home heating oil onto other electric-based things like geothermal or other heat pumps, we'll need much more electricity. And we can be on a path to ensure that that electricity is being supplied from renewable and local renewable sources, which would decrease transmission loss by using community choice aggregation. So people have asked me when you might be revisiting CCA, and I don't want to give them any inaccurate information. So would you be able to give me a sense
Well,
of
we just
your
held a
timeframe?
public hearing. We're, of course, one of the first communities in the area to hold a public hearing. I know I was the first town supervisor to sit in on a meeting with Jewel and with others in your living room and to listen and learn about CCA. We held a public hearing. Frankly, the town attorney, the town clerk, and myself reviewed the proposed legislation that we received and found it to be significantly flawed. Particularly, an important issue for all of us is making sure that our residents can make decisions opting in and opting out. It is it's an opt-out based program, but we want to make sure that no one is penalized if, for whatever reason, they make a decision not to remain in the program. There were a number of other areas that I don't think we need to get into all the details now, but the town attorney will be and has been revising that law. We're going to have to look to see whether those revisions are significant enough to require another public hearing. We haven't had the chance to have that conversation yet because the revisions aren't complete. Mm-hmm. But again, we've held that public hearing. I'm very proud that we were the first town in Monroe County to do that, and we're going to, within the next, certainly before the end of this year, I would anticipate that CCA, in one way, shape, or form, whether it's to hold another public hearing or to consider a revised local law based on the comments received at that public hearing, will be brought back before the town board. Now, of course, taking action by the town board doesn't implement a CCA.
Correct.
What it does is puts us on record as being prepared to consider participating in
Correct.
CCA,
Right.
having a representative at the table for a CCA, considering a management team to run a CCA, and to identify whether energy suppliers are in fact able to provide energy sources that are both renewable as well as financially viable for our residents. And in the future, potentially also to look at other local generation opportunities in the Monroe County
Absolutely.
surrounding area. So
Yeah.
I don't want to tell you we're going to have it on our agenda on thus and such a date.
No, I'm not.
I
I'm
can
not
assure
looking
you
for
that it hasn't been forgotten,
Oh, yes.
and we are, working very actively to take that, I guess I'll call it second step, maybe third step in giving the opportunity to participate in a CCA to the residents of Brighton.
That's great. Appreciate your time, both, at that first meeting on CCA, and we look forward to seeing you.
Lots of meetings since
And
then.
lots of meetings since then, and I know you have a full understanding of what it is or what it could be, its potential, and I really appreciate your time. I just don't want to give anyone any incorrect information when they ask me,
Sure.
and that's why I wanted to come and hear from you what you thought your time frame might be. So I very much
But
appreciate
again, I think it's
that.
important that everybody understand this is still a preliminary step.
Correct.
There needs to be a much larger base of customers to even realistically be able to go out to the market and take advantage of the benefits of the buying power of
That's
tens
absolutely right.
and or thousands of customers.
Right, right. This just
We look-
allows you to explore the options, and the Village of Lima has moved forward with that, and Scottsville, the town of Geneva, Brockport should be passing it just this next week. So there are communities out there waiting for others to join them, and we know you will do due diligence and come to the
I
best
hope they've all done
conclusion.
good, because frankly, I am concerned that they not approve laws that would be inconsistent with ours and that might also interfere with the ability of an administration of a CCA to set up a system that would, reflect, I think, some legitimate concerns, particularly in the opting out area,
Sure,
so that
yeah.
people aren't
Right.
stuck with excessive fees. We've seen ESCOs. We've seen, the door-to-door ESCOs that have baited and switched customers. I think some people are once bitten, twice shy. That's going to make, establishing a level of trust in a CCA a little more challenging than it otherwise would, but we also need to make sure that people are in fact in a position, if for whatever reason they believe that participation in the CCA is not for them, that they can get out without.
Absolutely, and I know, we are in complete agreement on that point, that opting out is absolutely should always be free for whomever, for the lifetime. And just for your peace of mind, every other municipality feels the same way. So whether that's in the language in the local law or whether that's stipulated in the implementation plan, some communities are more willing to put that in the implementation plan rather than in the language of the law itself.
We want to make sure the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right from the beginning.
Correct. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the town board during the open forum tonight? Hearing none, we will continue on with the rest of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros? Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Can I have a motion, Jim, to approve and file the town board meeting minutes for August 23rd and September 13th?
So moved.
Any discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros? Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. We have 3 items of communication tonight. Can I have a motion to receive and file those communications?
So moved.
Can I have a second? Thank you. Those 3 items include a notice from Ramsey Boehner, the Secretary to the Historic Preservation Commission, of the landmark designation of property located at 99 Pelham Road, together with a copy of the decision of the Historic Preservation Committee on that house. It does include the annual report of the Sustainability Oversight Committee from Everett Garcia, who, along with town engineer Mike Guyon, staffs the Sustainability Oversight Committee, and it's a very extensive report reflecting the breadth and depth of their expertise and their interest in providing us with background information on a variety of ways that the town of Brighton can become a more sustainable community. And finally is the report that we just received by email Monday, relating to the strong financial position of the town of Brighton, passing the State Comptroller's annual fiscal score for the town of Brighton under their fiscal monitoring system. So we have a motion to receive and file each of those items of communication. Any comments on any of those?
Bill, just that the annual report by the SOC is very comprehensive, and I know my colleagues on that committee work extremely hard and take into account all aspects of town government when they look at whether it's the capital program in purchasing police vehicles and changing out the light bulbs in the town hall and elsewhere, just every way that they can see to make us a climate-smart community, and that's a large focus of what they're doing right now, is going through the elements of that climate-smart evaluation. I'm very appreciative of the work they put in.
As am I. I will read it from cover to cover as I read their annual recommendations on our capital improvement plan. They're very valuable. I remember reading the first one and being struck by the depth that they went into in evaluating our capital purchasing programs. And of course, this annual report
In
is
fact,
even more
we have
so.
both of our town engineers
Yep.
on that committee. Actively
Well, staffing
engaged.
the
Staff-
committee, yeah.
Staffing that committee and actively engaged in it reflects the extent of our commitment.
It does. And thank you for your time, Chris, because some of those meetings are pretty long.
They are typically 2 hours long.
Meetings,
and
yeah.
more.
Yeah.
I can't say I always understand all what's going on, but they've worked very hard to educate me, and I appreciate it.
Great. Any other comments? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll on the motion to receive and file those communications.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFonte?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Committee reports. Chris, Community Services
Community
Committee.
Services met just on September 20th at Brookside, and it was a very active meeting. Matt Beeman reported on the parks in general, and we heard more about that at the Citizens Advisory Board, where he gave additional detail, first about field rentals. Have been very effective, in some $19,000 generated this year in field rentals.
Up several fold over just 5 years ago.
Yes, I think it's like 5 times what it was previously. And Matt's doing a great job. Of course, he had the benefit of a very rainy year, so we had good grass this year, but he's doing a great job there. Buckland Park, some 200 tons of fragmite stone have been installed along that perimeter trail, trying to get it above the water table, which is still a challenge back by the bridges there because it's just low back there. But he's doing a great job on maintaining that trail and broadening it again, because it had been, I think it started at 4 feet, got down to about 1 foot because of the
In
overgrowth.
places,
In
yeah.
some
I
places.
walk it regularly, and it was in places, the vegetation encroaching on it. And I don't know how much it didn't look like it rained very much there this afternoon. He was looking for a little bit of rain to help them do one last round of compacting on that new material, but it's made a big difference already.
Corbett's Glen Committee reported at the CAB with Ray Warwick, and then he circulated their recommendations as well. Parking continues to be an issue. The observation was that the lower Glen parking was pretty much under control, although there's still a lot of people going through, a lot of weddings going through and having pictures taken down below, and they totally ignore the handicapped signs to a certain extent because they're only going to be there for a short time. But it does have a great impact. Also, parking along Penfield Road at the Upper Glen has been of concern, but unfortunately that's controlled by the county. And there are not any no parking signs, and it's quite dangerous to park along Penfield Road. Also, there's spillover into neighboring streets. So parking is a big focus of the Corbett's Glen Committee, and they're working on a final report. Dennis Adams is leading that group as well, and of course the big issue is the environmental impact of the heavy usage of that park. It's such a beautiful park, it's such a popular park, and it's become a county-wide magnet for folks going to swim illegally in the creek over there and at the Postcard Falls. And the town law does not permit swimming by dogs or people, and it's having a real, it's really degrading the banks along there. And the police department was out enforcing the parking, and also the animal control officers that they're ticketing as well for dogs off lead, and I have hopes that we'll get good control of that. Brickyard Trail, there's still some fencing remaining there that Matt reported on, but there's some ground bees that are keeping our people from being able to remove all the fences, but he put up a warning sign in the meantime. But remove sweet clover in a hope that they would cut down the bees as well. Becky reported on Becky Cotter, the recreation programs, and expressed her appreciation to Matt's staff for the parking assistance and traffic direction during the Tuesday concert series. Internet and phone upgrades have been completed and are a switch over to Spectrum and did not disrupt our registration process, which was a difficult coordination. Let's see, move on. The farmers market, winter's farmers market drawing are going out to bid with some final improvements to the plans. Town beautification was a major focus of that committee, and we had a great attendance by folks from the Garden Lovers Club. Sally Constein came over and talked about what her group has done in other instances. But just generally talking about how to approach maintenance if we're going to have plantings of flowers and so forth, which we appreciate the gifts, but we have a large amount of parks and a very limited staff, and so we're looking at how to best approach maintaining what gardens we have. But then Mab Fitzgerald came in with Sally,
Patty.
Patty, excuse me, yeah, Patty Taylor Brown, thanks, from the Roselawn neighborhood, and our focus there is the Rose Garden here right on town campus, and talking about different opportunities or options on how to approach that, because that is such a large maintenance obligation, and what the town can do, but she's indicated that it is difficult to generate enough community volunteers from that neighborhood, which had been the original origin of that park, of that garden. And so we are looking forward to a meeting later on with neighborhood folks, staff folks here, myself, yourself.
And what we're looking at, on that meeting is really making sure that we have that meeting, and if a majority of, we always, with meetings where we're discussing town projects, it's important that we, comply with the open meetings law. And so we're trying to schedule a date that will work and can get people there. Tim and I have had a chance to talk about the Rose Park, and I know, we're looking to, I thought it was a great meeting. I really appreciated the very positive presentation, and the fact that the folks that were there were really focused, realistically on, they wanted to hone in on some particularly important areas, the 12 Corners Park, that Rose Park. And I found that very helpful, and hopefully something we can build on.
Yes, and what Mab had suggested as the two most important things the neighborhood association would like is notice and time.
Yep.
Notice of whatever the town's plans are, and we've made it clear to them we're very much interested in what they think we should do with that park. Yeah. And by all means, they'll have time to react to it. Also, we talked at length about the 12 Corners gardening improvements over there and the work of Dee Burdette and Sally and Ellen Toohey, who have just gotten right down.
Those
to
flowers that are in there look,
and it
do look a whole lot better.
It really looks great in coordination with Tim Anderson's crews that have gone in and been able now to trim out around the pergola and such. The new business we talked about was the movie production over on Brooklawn, and the utilization of the police special details there to help with parking and so forth. And then, of course, a report in on how homecoming went on a Saturday as opposed to a Friday night, which seemed to be well received and is a bit easier to police with traffic control and so forth. But at the same time, the kids just don't have enough time to make their floats if it's going to be moved up that early. So
that wasn't a Saturday function, that was an early in the school year.
That's because it's so early in the school year, yes. So our next meeting is October 18th at 9:30 at Brookside, and we really encourage people to come.
Thank you for such an extensive meeting and an extensive report out, because there are a lot of relevant issues as they relate to community services matters, and I appreciate your
Thanks, Bill.
And
taking the time to do that.
mentioned that the get-together at the park will be the 12th.
No,
That's
we're
the
waiting,
suggested
we're
date.
waiting to
We're
schedule,
trying
put a
to-
final schedule in on that, Louise. Finance and Administrative Services. Jason?
Bill, Finance and Administrative Services met last Tuesday, September 19th. Each of the items that were discussed during the finance meeting appear on tonight's agenda and will be voted on later. Our next regularly scheduled meeting will be on Tuesday, October 3rd. That's next week. We start at 3:30 in the afternoon, and we meet in the Stage Conference Room, and the public is invited to attend.
Thank you, and as was mentioned before, we are going to be at this next committee meeting along with our regular Finance Committee agenda. We will be spending time discussing this tentative budget that was presented tonight.
Yes, well, we'll still be starting at 3:30, though,
We
correct?
will still be starting at
Okay.
3:30.
Okay, great.
Louise, Public Safety?
Public Safety has not met since the last town board meeting. I would like to ask Tim if you could paint the arrows going right and left out of the library side of the town hall.
We are moving westerly along Elmwood Avenue to do the side streets and stuff, so that is on, as the weather permits, we will, continue our striping, crosswalks and entrances, and that is, I did talk to Tim Springer about that already, Louise, so.
I noticed that too today.
And also, as chair of the Public Safety, I pointed out at the last meeting that I started this, the Brighton Police, Fire, and Ambulance remind you that there is safety in numbers. Where's the camera? Camera?
It's right up there. It's got you.
Okay, and that we can't find you if we can't help you if we can't find you. Seconds count. So everybody is asked, there is a town law that you should have 4-inch numbers on the front of your house so that people can find you, not only the first responders, but if you have people coming to visit you, have never been to your house before, and there's no number, and there's no streetlights, and if there's no sidewalks, it's very difficult to find people. So please, if you can, get these numbers and just make sure they're 4 inches high and can be seen from the street. That's it. Our next meeting is going to be October 10th at 8 in the morning, downstairs meeting room.
Thank you, Louise. Jim, Public Works.
Yeah, Public Works has not met since the last town council meeting, but our next scheduled meeting will be not Tuesday of next week, but a week from tonight, a week from tomorrow, a week from today at 9 a.m. in the morning,
What date is that?
the 4th,
October 4th.
October 4th, and we're going to meet up here in the auditorium because there's a meeting below us that same time. So we'll be meeting on Wednesday versus Tuesday of next week. Wednesday, October 4th at 9 a.m. right here in the auditorium.
Thank you, Jim. That's all for committee reports. New business. Jason, reading and approval of claims.
Yes, Bill, earlier tonight, I reviewed claims totaling $1,113,432.83. And along the lines of what was discussed during the budget presentation on capital projects, there were several of them included in those. The notable claims include to Heinz Concrete Contractor in the amount of $69,942.07 for replacement of concrete gutters in the Willowcrest neighborhood. Also to Kenyon Pipeline Inspection for sewer pipelining in the Stony Brook, Fairhill, Towpath, Southland, Doncaster, and Westfall neighborhoods in the amount of $139,845.80. And also to Spinrite as a partial payment for our annual sidewalk repair program in the amount of $37,149.37. The claims all appear to be in order, and I move that they be approved.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Louise?
The next matter is for authorization for supervisor to execute an agreement with GAR Associates LLC.
The one before that.
Approval for town court to apply for a Justice Court Assistance Program, JCAP, grant in an amount up to $10,000 to support the purchase of various court-related items. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
And the letter from Colleen Rogers, our administrative court clerk, details those items. They're actually relatively mundane attorney's tables, which we don't have enough now, and the size isn't right, and some file tubs to transport the various files into the courtroom. Mundane, but still important. They're seeking a $10,000 grant. It's their expectation the actual cost will be less than that. Jason, did you second that?
I seconded that, yes.
So, further discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Jason, now the GAR. Matt.
Yes. Next matter seeks authorization for supervisor to execute an agreement with GAR Associates LLC for the licensing fee and use of proprietary software relating to the 2018 Assessment Roll Update Project. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
This is software that will not only help with scheduling the various meetings that are going to be necessary with property owners, but also facilitate the provision of supporting information by property owners who are seeking to come in to talk to the assessor about making changes to the valuation as determined through the reval, as well as making it easier for the assessor's office. This software will automatically push all the data in the existing files out to the property owner. So it'll really help make sure that everybody comes into those informal and other meetings relating to the ultimate assessment of their property with all the information necessary to make a good decision. So I think this, at least for this year, for this coming year, for the update process, will be money very well spent, and they'll look and see whether it makes sense going forward on an ongoing basis, and they'll have the opportunity to decide whether or not to renew in the future. And I believe you have or are in the process of finalizing have you seen that agreement, Ken? Yeah, perfect. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Louise?
The next matter is for approval to declare two particular police vehicles that are no longer serviceable based on their current value as surplus and authorize their disposal through municipal auction. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Any discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. These are both vehicles that have served well. A lot of miles,
Yes, they have.
2013 Caprices.
but with mileage that belies.
24/7 and
Yeah.
new motors, new brakes, and don't keep the water out when it rains.
Next matter, Chris.
Next item is to authorize budget appropriations to support the purchase of various computer law enforcement equipment for the Brighton Police Department using seized forfeiture assets. I move that we adopt the resolution prepared by the attorney for the town before us.
Second.
And the use of the seized assets will mean that they will not have a direct budget impact on the town budget. Mark, I don't know if you want to talk at all about.
I can talk publicly. We, actually, this is one of the authorized uses. We're going to upgrade the infrastructure of the police department IT network, and this will have a positive impact for, we are now moving in at breakneck speed into a digital environment, and this helps us keep up with it at budget neutral to the taxpayers in the town.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzi?
Aye.
Councilmember Warner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Jim?
Next is to authorize the supervisor to execute a stormwater maintenance easement agreement together with the related documents for the Brighton Volunteer Ambulance Construction Improvement Project. I move in the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
This is related to the expansion project of BVA at their current location. Tim, anything to say about this item?
No, similar to the one we did a couple of weeks ago, Bill. It's perfunctory from the standpoint we need to do these as part of our compliance with the Phase 2 regulations, that there has to be an entity that will oversee the pond if the owner does not, so.
Yeah, good. Okay. Further comment on that? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzi?
Aye.
Councilmember Warner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Matters of the supervisor, we do have the monthly expense and revenue report at the end of when we get the September final report at one of our October meetings. The finance director will give her usual quarterly report and status update to see how we're doing so far in the year. But tonight, I'll just ask for a motion to receive and file this.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzi?
Aye.
Councilmember Warner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. I also want to just talk a little bit about leaf pickup. It's been 90 degrees the last few days, but we all know fall is coming, and I think when we step outside tonight, it may start to feel a little closer to fall. So, you know, again, leaf pickup is one of the largest endeavors that our highway department engages in. It's one of the most visible endeavors, that and obviously our snow plowing, and we'd like to push that off as far as we can. But there are some things, some tips to make the highway department's job easier and to make your job easier, all of us who are out there raking and blowing leaves, or who are using somebody else to do that, whether you're doing it yourself or whether you are hiring a landscape company to do it. It is very important that leaves not be placed in the street. Let me repeat that, and Judy, I'll ask you, as in your role with Brighton Neighbors United and being in communication with neighborhood associations, more and more of whom are using social media to communicate with their members. Probably the most important thing that I can ask everybody is do not put leaves, or for that matter, lawn and garden debris, in the street. Why? First, we've talked about safety tonight. We've talked about traffic safety tonight. Every pile of leaves, every pile of branches that's in the street narrows the street and makes it tougher for drivers and cyclists and potentially pedestrians crossing the street to all use the same area of pavement. It also hurts visibility. It means you may not see that child playing in the next yard that runs out after the ball. So that's one reason. Safety is a big reason not to pile leaves, and frankly, to be conscious of the height of the leaf piles and try not to get them so high in general that they block visibility. But second, the next reason is the fall is often a rainy time of the year, and when leaves are in the street, they tend to get washed down to the storm drains, block the storm drains, then vegetation starts to grow in the storm drains, and we potentially have a drainage problem. We've seen September storms, remnants of tropical storms, October storms come up and significantly affect this area. That's the second reason that we ask you, please don't pile your leaves and your lawn debris and your branches in the street. And third, it's against the law. And that may be the most important reason. And we try very hard. We don't want to ticket people for doing that. But we want to make sure emergency vehicles can get through. I have seen streets in the past where there were so many leaves piled by neighbors on both sides of the street into the street that literally it potentially blocked fire engines from getting through. We will try to warn, although I know, as we do with our good neighbor letters, when we've got properties that we know repeatedly put their leaves in the street, don't count on just getting a friendly warning. Please don't do it. It takes time away from our highway staff. When it's our highway workers who are going to be leaving that good neighbor letter for you, and the time they're spending putting a note on your door asking you not to put your leaves in the street is time they should be spending getting leaves into the back of the truck and getting them off the street. So I know that sounds like a little bit of a nag, but it's very real and very important. And I think a lot of times, when we get new people coming into town every year, they see their neighbors doing it, so they figure, well, that's where it's supposed to be. It's not where it's supposed to be. If I've already seen some folks start to doing it. I see a lot of people putting them in the right place. I see some in the wrong place. So whether you're a veteran Brightonian or whether you're new, please help our highway crews out, help your neighbors out. Keep those leaves on the lawn. Second, and this is a way to help yourself out, we have both containerized pickup and bulk pickup of leaves. The containerized pickup, our truck is able to circulate more quickly. Your containerized leaves will be picked up faster than leaves that are left in bulk on your front lawn. Now, I know sometimes you get so much, got a lot of leaves, it's not practical. But when I see some of these little piles just put out there, please, whether you have a small garbage can you want to put them in, or those big brown paper bags that you can get from hardware stores and home improvement stores, they'll get picked up faster. They're neater. Not only will they not be on the street as long, they won't be blowing around in the autumn winds, they'll be put in all in one location. So where you possibly can, please containerize. And again, I want to make note, those leaves are going to our, not to a garbage landfill, the way so many other communities do. In our case, they're going up to Blossom Road where they're composted and can ultimately go back into the ecosystem and not take up space in a landfill. And if you've got a company doing that, ask them, get a license to use our landfill. Take those leaves up to the landfill directly is a great result. Finally, if you want to know when we're going to be out in your neighborhood, on our town website, we have 2 maps. And again, leaf pickup starts October 16th. We're not quite there yet. We're picking up lawn and garden debris as we do really throughout the year, except when the snow flies. But the full-scale leaf pickup starts on October 16th, and you can check on the town website, townofbrighton.org. There are 2 maps, a containerized map and a bulk pickup map that should give you 2 days of notice as to when we expect. There'll always be some, we make our best guess as to when we're going to be in a neighborhood. We may not finish the neighborhood, but just to try to give everybody some advance warning as whether you're going to have a pickup within the next couple days. As we get into November and December, we will again this year be doing some significant overtime work on the weekends and the long Thanksgiving weekend. We know that's important to get the leaves picked up. We during much of the year, and particularly for containerized pickups, we really do stick pretty closely to a weekly cycle. It is not realistic, and we will not pick up bulk leaves on a weekly cycle. We'll come pretty close to it picking up containerized leaves, but bulk leaves, it is not unusual for it to take 3 weeks, and sometimes even more at the height of the season in November and early December, even with that overtime. So we're gonna do the very best work we can. The leaf pickup continues until December. We are experiencing climate change, and as a result, the leaves are falling later in the season. So don't be alarmed when that first snow comes if we haven't picked up your leaves. We are, whenever conditions permit, our crews are out there. If they're not plowing and salting, they are, if necessary, digging through the snow to get at those leaf piles. We will not leave your leaf, if you put your leaves out in January, yes, they may sit there through the winter. But if you put your leaves out when they fall, even into early December, we will be making a final pass through the town and getting those leaves up, getting them to our composting facility. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work for all of you and all of us with trees in our yards, but please remember how hard our highway workers work, and a wave and a thank you as the truck goes through is always appreciated. That's all I have. Matters of the attorney to the town.
I don't have anything, thank you.
Thank you. Matters of the clerk.
Just a quick reminder to everybody, the full school tax due date falls on a Sunday this year, October 1st. So payments will be accepted as timely on Monday the 2nd, though I would encourage folks not to all wait till Monday. If half of you can come Friday and the other half on Monday, I'll leave you to work it out amongst yourselves. But if we can spread that out, we'll get you in and out here a lot faster.
Thanks, Dan, and maybe the usual reminder about what happens with those partial payments when the people who have signed up to make partial payments, those payments will be coming up over the next little bit too, and where they send those.
Well, the remaining installments.
The installments.
Sorry, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so the second and third installments go right to the Monroe County Treasury, 39 West Main, and the address is right on the stub.
Not in
here.
person to the town clerk.
So if we do get them, we will send them along for you. Some towns actually I've found that some towns send them back to the homeowner, which I think is asinine. So we'll send those along. We try to do a little education along the way.
Thanks. Matters of the town board.
I have a couple of questions about the presentation.
Sure.
Number one, when he was talking about the sidewalks in front of homes, he did not mention that it's being paid for by the homeowners. And I mean, it was a large number, and I think that is a misconception by people that the town is also paying for all the sidewalks in front of homes. And they have high sidewalk districts, and so they are being paid from the sidewalk districts.
But I think it's important for those of us that live in a sidewalk district, yes, on our tax bill is a line
Right.
for a sidewalk district, but the homeowner doesn't pay for or contract for the work that's being done in front of their house. They indirectly pay for it through the sidewalk district
Right,
that they're
but it's not something that is another budget item from, the town has to take from everybody's taxes. They're our sidewalk district. Also, I have a question.
Although, and again, I just, on arterial streets, that's true for residential streets.
Yes.
But our main, for example, we heard about Edgewood, for example. Those main roads, the Elmwoods, which is another street that we all know we're trying to deal with some continuing gaps and safety issues. Unless we are able to find alternate means of providing sidewalks through development, incentive zoning, or the like, those do become a townwide charge rather than on
Even the people that, if they're like that, between Hollywood and Seminole, those people are Roselawn residents. Aren't they in the district?
Do you mean properties that front on Elmwood? I'd have to look, but I believe those sidewalks, which are wider than at least the ones on the north side of Elmwood, which are wider, I believe are town-wide, but we can double check
Yeah.
that. Tim is nodding.
The sidewalks along Elmwood were funded by the town, not by the district,
Right.
because it's a county road, and as Bill said, generally the arterials are state or county roads. You know, there may be some exceptions or you know, whatever in that, Louise. Those properties themselves may be included in the Roselawn district, because at the time, it was looked at that being part of the neighborhood, they also had access to the internal sidewalks in the neighborhood, so they may be part of the district and pay for the sidewalks within the district themselves. But the sidewalks along Elmwood were funded by the town, you know, at the general fund.
So they're not part of the sidewalk district of
That's
Rose-
correct. They wouldn't be included in the Roselawn district for work being done or
But
anything
if there's
else.
any particular, you know, property you have a question about, we can always.
No, but if they do put sidewalks between Eastland and Westland.
Those would be town sidewalks.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
The other question I had was about the ambulance, where he said that they're going to fund $75,000 for an ambulance next year, even though they're not going to buy one.
Correct.
Why?
Well, we've been doing that for many years. We fund the ambulance reserve. Ambulances cost more than that, and so as to avoid having a bump, a big number in a year that we're buying it, we spread the cost out. And $75,000 a year has been a number that in recent years it comes pretty close. Right now, the ambulance, Brighton Volunteer Ambulance, is replacing ambulances on about an 18-month cycle. Those ambulances, most recently bid out, cost a little bit more than $100,000. So at $75,000 a year, you're basically, you know, $75,000 plus $37,500. In other words, 6 months worth of that covers approximately the cost of an ambulance. So that's an ongoing expense that all of the town, because the ambulance district is a town-wide expense, and for quite a number of years has been paying for the ambulances on that basis.
Wouldn't it be better for us to keep it in a special fund and receive the interest?
That's exactly what happens. It's in a reserve fund. It's in the ambulance reserve fund. And although there isn't much interest being earned these days, that's exactly where that money, that's a special district charge, and that goes to the reserve fund. Then money is taken out of the reserve fund as needed when the actual ambulance is purchased.
The other things that I wanted to again say is that we're having the recycling for shredding and electronics on October 14th from 9 to 12 in the parking lot at the Public Works at 1941
Yes.
Elmwood Avenue, next to the Brightonian. I've been getting calls already from people wanting to know exactly when and exactly what time. 9 to 12, trucks leave exactly at 12, so if you want to get there and get your stuff in, come earlier. The pharmaceutical take-back is going to be 2 weeks later, October 28th, from 10 to 2 here in the parking lot when you come into Town Hall, the police side, and you would just follow the cones around, and it's in front of one of the police bays. And again, there was the thing I started with the having your house numbers, and I'm working on some other recycling that we'll talk about next time.
Thanks, Louise. Any other matters of the town board?
Yeah, just to carry the question that Louise had posed about how do we pay for maintenance of sidewalks. Another good example would be along East Avenue, let's say from Elmwood Avenue or Linden. all the way to Penfield Road. There are new sidewalks we put in on the north side. Those sidewalks are our responsibility for maintaining, and that's out of the general fund
Correct.
and not out of a district, yeah. It's a good question to bring it up because-
Sidewalks are very, very expensive. We know, we did our bicycle pedestrian master plan in 2013, and we identified significant gaps in our sidewalk system on usually one, but in some cases, both sides of some of our significant arterial streets. We continue, we're very much aware, and walking and cycling, active transportation in general is a priority. Constructing new sidewalks, not to mention maintaining them, but really the cost of constructing new sidewalks is very expensive. And although through development projects, we require any new development to put in sidewalks along the frontage, incentive zoning is probably the best tool we have to extend our sidewalk network along arterial streets. Identifying internal town funding is, as you saw tonight, our financial condition is strong, but it's strong because we have to be very fiscally prudent, and it is, I have to say, not realistic to think that in the short term we're going to be able to fund internally large expansions and large fillings of those gaps in our townwide sidewalk system. We've used community development block grants in West Brighton to fill some gaps over there. Community development block grants, A, are under attack again in Washington. B, are only available in certain census tracts with socioeconomic levels. So our options can be limited, but we appreciate hearing about them.
From my understanding is that when we use incentive zoning to get developers to put in sidewalks, it's much more cost effective because they don't have to go with the same pay scale that we have to go through.
Well, I'm not sure that I would necessarily agree with that statement, but that's,
Well, that's what I have been
that's
told.
something that we do use incentive zoning without, getting into all the particulars. We do use incentive zoning as a major vehicle for completing our sidewalk network.
Ponder me. Why is it every time I say something, you have to say the opposite?
No, not really.
I mean, it's prevailing wage, that's what I've been always
Patient.
told. Prevailing wage, and when the contractors do it, they don't have to follow prevailing wage, so.
Every
it's cheaper.
situation is a
Maybe
little
so.
bit different, and we all get into trouble making, generalizations.
She do.
Excuse me. I just
Yeah.
wanted a little clarification on the ambulance, because I'm
Sure.
glad actually Louise did bring it up, because during the presentation it said that we were not going to purchase one in 2018.
That's correct.
But actually, the last ambulance that we put an order in on was last fall, a year ago. If we stay in the same 18-month schedule, we will put an order in 2018 for another ambulance. They take 4 to 6 months to be built and
Right.
be delivered. So that last ambulance we received was delivered in 2017, back in February, but it was ordered in 2016. So
And we
So
don't pay for
so,
them until they're delivered.
and we don't
Fall
pay
of
until delivery.
2018 is probably when we can
Right, but
expect
if we
that.
order in 2018, we'll need the funding there, which will be this $75,000 in the 2018 budget that's being proposed, plus $75,000 that we have
already in
already.
the.
And since you raised the ambulance, I was going to make this comment earlier, but I'll just put your mind even further at ease on this. It's part of our contract with Brighton Ambulance that they do not charge town residents, I think you know this, the co-pays that they would otherwise be paying when town residents get ambulance service. And in order to balance that, the town itself has to provide compensation to Brighton Volunteer Ambulance, and it does so through both a cash payment and the provision of ambulances through the ambulance district. So there's a balance there between the service that is being provided at no cost to the taxpayers of the town of Brighton, at least as far as a copay is concerned, and what the town pays to the ambulance under the contract for a subsidy and the ambulance provision as well through the district. So that's why that's done.
Thanks. Any other matters of the town board?
I would just say, in summary, this kind of dialogue, I think is helpful to the public at large, for them, because they can learn things about the function of their government. Louise, you started this asking a very basic question. It could be on the minds of many people, like, how do we pay for these sidewalks? Who does? And Bill's came in with clarification, which, was also important. And then, obviously, Suzanne, as well as Ken, and Chris, and Jason. I mean, all of us. This is helpful to have a dialogue like this, as long as we're brief and to the point, but that we don't go on ad nauseum. But the point being is this is a helpful dialogue. It really is, really.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
If there are no other matters of the board, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros? Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Thanks, everybody. Our next town board meeting will be October 11th, 2017, where we will have our first public hearing on the 2018 town budget. Look forward to seeing you then. Have a great night.